What's up, everybody? Michael Draper here from Dad's Watching Sports. I appreciate you checking us out this week. Um, I apologize ahead of time if everybody was checking this out and you saw our intro roll through twice. But computer, it's 2020. I upgrade our internet to get better internet, but for some reason my computer now is lagging a little bit. So apologize for that kind of in advance. But hope everybody's doing well. It is Sunday, November the 8th. Again, Michael Draper here, joining you guys here on Dad's Watching Sports. And thank you for checking us out each and every week, whether you're checking us out via our live stream on the Facebook page or our YouTube channel or the All Access Facebook page, All Access Network Facebook page. We appreciate you joining us and checking out the show each and every week. And I am looking forward to having you guys. So you're probably noticing here, if you're checking out the show, we are short a co-host, at least for right this second, and we'll get to that in just a second. But we definitely want you to download Dad's Watching Sports anytime, anywhere. If you're checking us out on the live stream, we want you to communicate with us throughout the show and definitely shoot us some comments, some questions, whatever have you. If you agree, if you don't agree, we want to hear from you. So do that during the show, and we'll make sure and get those up during the show as well. If you're checking us out on our podcast, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review because we always appreciate that. Again, Michael Draper here, noticeably without Kyle Castles. TJ already jumping in, says hit with a hammer. I actually did that when I muted myself and did that earlier, TJ. So I appreciate the heads up on that for sure. Kyle Castles is out this week. Kyle probably wouldn't mind me sharing that he and his wife and their son are in Los Angeles, the city of angels. If you checked out our show last week, they're not fully there to celebrate the Dodgers victory. Kyle's wife, is a big LA Dodgers fan, was actually at Game 6. If you didn't catch our show last week, we talked a little bit about that. They're not there for that. Their son has a food allergy and is there to do some kind of trial testing. Kyle will elaborate on that with us next week, but he is out this week. And so we definitely send our thoughts with the Castles families. They're going and doing that. But luckily for me, I am not going to have to be solo. I'll bring on my guest here in just a few minutes. But before we get to kind of the topics for the night, and I get to my awesome guest for the night, Brandon Combs. It's been a wild week. I know it has been for everybody. And Kyle Castles and I were really just kind of talking throughout the week. And we said, we are now 40 episodes into this podcast, which is kind of hard to believe. We started on Super Bowl Sunday. Here we are 40 weeks later on episode 40 of the show. And after 40 episodes, you begin to do a little, I guess you could say, soul searching, or just kind of looking at the show and saying, okay, like, what can we do to make this more appealing for the listeners or the viewers, or how can we get a little bit more interaction, or what can we do to just make this show better? And Kyle and I were talking about, I don't think anybody listens to our podcast, and we can be honest about this. I don't think anybody listens to this podcast or watches this stream because they know that we are the experts in breaking down the X's and O of NFL, college football, NBA, kind of across the gamut. They go to the big networks. They go to maybe some other great shows to do that. That's not why you guys check us out. And we understand that, and we appreciate that. We know that with this show, it's called Dad's Watching Sports for a reason. We want to talk about dad life and all the things that kind of come along with that. And so over the next few weeks, we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to have our sports topics, of course, but we're also really going to start trending towards those dad topics and the topics that hopefully resonate with you. And that's why we also want to make sure we're getting a lot of comments from those of you that are either checking us out on the live stream, or if you're checking us out, if you download the show, we want to hear from you throughout the week, because we feel like that's kind of what resonates with people. It's not, again, to sit here and listen to us talk about, how the Tampa Bay Rays manager blew it in Game 6 by pulling out his pitcher. You guys want to know, how are we using those types of things to teach life lessons to our kids? And so we're going to continue to do that. So that will be coming in over the next couple of weeks. We're really going to start to incorporate more of that stuff. And I hope you guys appreciate it. And if you don't, let us know, and maybe we'll change it again. Probably not, but maybe we will. You'll see a little bit of that kind of stuff tonight. But again, over the next couple of weeks, we're really going to get into that. So with that being said, I'm going to bring on my co-host for the evening, Mr. Brandon Combs. Brandon is the host of Triple Shot Sports. Brandon, how are you, sir?
Man, I am good. Look, I was listening to you backstage, and you're talking about, you're trying to get the show to look better and sound better, and here I am. Here.
I know, right? Perfect timing
Uh,
for us to have an upgrade.
yeah. No, look, I really like what you guys are doing here. I catch your guys' show as much as I can. I'm a dad. I'm a stepdad. So I really appreciate a lot of the stuff that you guys talk about, the sports views and all that. Over on Triple Shot Sports, we talk pretty much all sports. So we don't really get into the dad stuff too much. Every once in a while, we'll hit on it a little bit. But no, I'm really happy to be here, man.
Yeah, well, thanks, and tell everybody just kind of where I know if they're a fan of All Access and the great shows we have on this network, they'll know. But if somebody's just catching our podcast and they haven't caught you guys yet, just tell people where they can find you and the Triple Shot Sports Show.
Yeah, so you can find Triple Shot Sports on Facebook on the Triple Shot Sports Facebook page. You can find us on the All Access Sports Network as well, or you can find us on our YouTube page. It's youtube.com/Triple Shot Sports. We go live every Sunday from 7 p.m. Central to 8 p.m. Central, or 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Eastern, whichever side of the country you live on. And we do a lot of sports breakdown, but we also have a lot of crazy takes. I mean, we're very opinionated. We go at each other a lot. There's a lot of arguing, a lot of stuff that we go back and forth on, and we're very passionate about our teams. I am a diehard Chicago guy, and my co-host is a diehard Boston guy, and we go back and forth, and we banter a lot. So it's a lot of fun. Check us out.
Absolutely. And I know you've been kind of instrumental in this all access sports network. So tell the listeners out there a little bit, because I know, when we first kind of got involved with this group, it was RTF, and then we kind of made that switch over to all access.
Hmm.
Tell us just a little, for those of our listeners that maybe haven't checked it out yet, just a little bit about kind of how that all went down and kind of what they can expect maybe in the next little bit from the all access sports network.
Yeah, so with all access, really, I mean, we're not trying to compete with like the ESPNs, the Fox Sports, those type of guys. We're trying to compete with like the Barstool Sports, the guys who are out there and that are doing the stream. We're trying to do something with this network where it's a bunch of podcasts of guys like ourselves who just watch sports. I the one thing that really led me to start doing the podcasting and this all access sports network thing with Michael Buckheiser, who's been instrumental in it as well, is that I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting there watching a game and I'm saying stuff and then 30 seconds later the announcer is saying it,
Yeah.
or I'm seeing something and the announcer never mentions it. I'm like, how are you not talking about this right now? And so I was like, and then finally I just, what, I need to do something about getting paid for this. So I started going to school with Full Sail University to get my degree in sports broadcasting, and I linked up with Michael Buckheister and the guys. Started out as I was just writing for them in the blog section, then started my show with Soup Boss there, Triple Shot Sports. He's been out for a couple months, and I also do the Man Hour After Dark with Michael Buckheister and Mike LeBlanc. And hopefully, we can make this thing grow. It's all about you guys, the fans out there, you guys that are listening, what you guys want to hear. That's why we're all about what you guys want to hear. Chime in. We put your comments up there. We talk what you guys want to talk about. So it's really just something we want to try and grow and see where it goes.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we're glad to be a part of it. And appreciate you guys bringing us along for the ride. All right, Combs. So there's a lot to get into, but man, it's been a wild week, and we like to pride ourselves here on this show of also dabbling in what's going on in the world, and so. Not that we're going to get political on this show, because we try not to do that as much as possible. But we did have a pretty significant event this past week with the election going on, and we're still, even though it kind of came out over the last 24 hours or so, that where looks like Biden's going to pull out with a victory, still not completely putting this thing to bed. But just initial reactions from how this thing has kind of gone down, and here we are on Sunday, 5 days later, and we still maybe have a president, but we're not sure. It's been wild, man.
It's been absolutely insane. I'm gonna say it like this: I'm not Democrat. I'm not Republican. I'm in the middle. I like to listen to both sides of the fence and then make up my mind.
Yep.
I don't subscribe to the notion that because the Republican side says this, that I'm all for this guy, or because the Democratic side says this, I'm all for this guy. I like to watch it down the middle, and boy, are people stupid. because look, 4 years ago we had one side that said, "Oh, the election was rigged. This isn't how it goes," and then the other side was like, "Stop, just accept the results." And now 4 years later, one side, which is now the opposite side, saying, "Man, this is rigged," and now the other side saying, "Stop, it can't be rigged, accept the result." It's crazy. There's a lot of things going on. Maybe he is the president, maybe he's not the president. At this point, I just want whoever's elected to do a good job, because
Yeah.
wanting the president to fail, like we've seen a lot of people say over the last 4 years, they hope he goes down in flames. If you want the president to fail, that's like wanting the pilot of your plane to crash it into a mountain.
Right.
So I just want the person to do a good job. I hope they do a good job. I thought between you, me, and the people watching this podcast, we had the choices between a crap sandwich and a crap popsicle.
Yep.
Those were our choices this year, and if this is the two best candidates that we have to run our country, we're in a lot more trouble than we think.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. And I'm kind of right there with you in terms of pretty much everything that you said. And I think for me, it presented a couple of opportunities. My kids are still very young. I've got a 4-year-old and an almost 2-year-old. But it does. Anytime there's this process that we go through, it gives you an opportunity to have those conversations with your kids and talk about the process and talk about the peaceful transfer of power and how it's not like that in every single country, and how it's not about it's not always about who necessarily has I wouldn't say the most money, because it usually is, but it's just a cool process when we think about the fact that what we do, we all vote, we all get in line, we all stand in there, we give our votes, and then these people get elected and they go into office, and then we do that every 2 or 4 years. So I like that part. What we have tried to do in our family is talk about having grace in victory and defeat. We're seeing a little bit of maybe that in the victory part right now, but we're not really necessarily seeing that in defeat. But that's just something you just don't see anymore in the whole political realm, is just saying, hey, man, you know what? Okay, we lost. That's it. Let's move on. Let's figure out what's for the betterment of the country. Or in victory, saying, hey, okay, it was a good race. Let's go ahead and move forward. I'm going to be here to unify our country. And so that's one big thing that I want to do and make sure I'm teaching my kids is, there is always going to be a winner and a loser, and how you handle yourself, no matter which side of that you fall on, says a lot about you. And I think, hopefully there's a lot of parents around the country that are hoping they're teaching their kids the same thing.
And that's so tough nowadays, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
with the everybody gets a trophy mentality, with the we don't keep score in youth sports until they hit age 11 or 12, like that type of. So when we were kids, man, I remember when I was in t-ball, and we had a playoffs and a championship in t-ball. Like we were taught how to handle losing, we were taught how to do things, and I try to instill the same things in my kids. I try to teach them to lose with grace. I coach a lot of youth sports. I ref youth sports, hockey, baseball, even dabbled in basketball a little bit with it. And I try to always tell my kids, look, I understand that we want to win, and that's our goal. We're here to win. We want to try to win. But if we lose, if we don't come out on top, we're still going to line up. We're still going to shake the other team's hands, and we're still going to tell them good game. Because that's what I want to instill in my kids. That's what I want to instill in the kids that I coach. And it's just, it's a product of the world we live in, man.
Yep.
People don't accept no. People don't accept losing, and it's getting harder and harder to deal with it. People were boarding up their businesses and their houses in anticipation for one side winning and the other side losing, and that just goes to show right there that you've got a side that is, if they get told no, and if they lose, we might have our cities burning.
Yeah.
Like what is going on in the world that we're scared? Our own cities and our own neighbors are scared about the results of an election.
Yeah, it's a wild time,
Yeah.
and I think this comment by TJ is pretty funny. It says, on the lighter note, I think whoever wins needs to do an end zone victory dance. TJ, I don't know if you saw Biden come out for his little acceptance ceremony, but he had like a little Rocky Balboa jog going on his way out there last night, which is pretty funny. I saw somebody take that video and add the Ultimate Warriors theme song to it, which was pretty hilarious. All right, well, we'll digress on the election, but it's the biggest story in the world right now. We had to bring it up on the show, and I appreciate you talking about that. And again, as dads and people that have influence on young people, it's our responsibility to say, hey, here's this process that we've had for hundreds of years. It works. We're going to continue to do that, and when you win, we're gonna do this the correct way, and when you lose, we're going to do this the correct way. Yeah. And as you mentioned, it's harder and harder to continue to promote that. Speaking of winning, I know you're a big baseball guy. We had a pretty big, heavy baseball show, as I'm sure a lot of people did last week with the World Series coming to conclusion. Just really quickly, what was your reaction on the Dodgers taking it in 6?
I was shocked after Game 4. After the way that Tampa Bay came back in that game and won that game in the 9th inning, I really thought that gave Tampa Bay what was going to, be the fuel for them to win it in 7. And the way that the Dodgers handled that and came out and won it in 6, I mean, kudos to them. I'm happy for guys like Cody Bellinger and Mookie Betts and Justin Turner, guys who I love, to see play the game just because of the way that they play the game. So I was happy for some of those guys. I'm never happy for a Dodgers fan base. I'm on record saying that they are probably the worst fan base in all of sports. And I know you said your co-host's wife is a huge Dodgers fan, so she's probably going to hate me now and never want me to be back on the show. But no, I mean, Dodgers fans, they don't show up till the 3rd inning. They're gone before the 7th inning. It just drives me. And I'm a Cubs fan, so I just hate anybody who wins.
There you go. Well, my co-host Kyle, yes, his wife is a Dodgers fan, but he is a Cubs fan, and so yeah, they go at it pretty good there. But yeah, it's LA fans are just like that in every sport, without a doubt. You mentioned Justin Turner. A lot came out about him coming on the field after being pulled in the 8th inning for positive COVID test. Comes out, celebrates with the team. We talked about that pretty at length on our show last week as well. Of what would you do? Should they allow him back on the field? Whatever have you. But it looks like he's not going to get any punishment from baseball. What are your thoughts on the no punishment? I'll give you this as a collective group last week. We thought, if it's us, we're going out there. You've worked your entire life to be in this moment. And if baseball's okay with it and the team's okay with it, then why not go out there and celebrate? But what's your take on no punishment for Justin Turner?
I'm 100% with you guys. Look, this guy worked his entire life for one moment. And that one moment happened, and you don't want him to be able to go out and celebrate. He was already around these guys for 8 innings before they finally said, oh, hey, by the way, you're positive, come out of the game.
Right.
So if you're going to punish anybody, you need to punish Major League Baseball, because he was already hugging these guys, giving high fives, yelling in the face, spitting all over the field, tagging the other team. He was I hate the fact that he had to come out of that game and miss out on the moment of being on the field when they finally won the World Series. So I had no problem with him coming back out. The media like to portray it as, oh, this guy came out, he had no mask on. He had a mask on for a majority of the time that he was out there. Took it off for the team picture. Took it off while he was hanging out with his wife and kids. So I don't have a problem with it. I like Justin Turner a lot. I like the way the kid plays ball. He's a hard-nosed guy. He's a free agent. I hope the Cubs trade Chris Bryant this offseason, and I hope that they bring Justin Turner in, to be honest with you. But I had no problem with no punishment for him. There should be no punishment for him.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. Again, like I said, and you reiterated, my man works his entire life for that moment. And if it's any one of us, we're going to be out there. And if anybody says, "Oh, I wouldn't do it," well, then you've never played a single second of any meaningful athletic event of your life. Because if you're putting every single ounce that you have in you for your entire life, and you get to that moment, of course you're going to go out there and celebrate. Go ahead.
Look at the Notre Dame fans last night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about that later in the show, but yeah, absolutely.
They said, hell with COVID.
They said, man, we got touchdown Jesus here behind us. We're okay. Yeah, we're good to go.
I'm not a big guy who is fearful of COVID. My girlfriend and her family, they're the opposite spectrum of me with the COVID thing. I'm not a one who's going to, miss out on that moment um, because of COVID. So that's just me. It's I have no problem with it whatsoever.
There you go. So that also led me to a question, because this is something that I deal with all the time, because like I said, I have a 4 and almost 2-year-old. And that is, well, then what are some appropriate punishments for when someone doesn't follow the rules? Because, man, again, I'm sitting here and we've got a daughter who's 4, and she just does not like to listen. And
Yep.
and it's one of those things where we've done the timeouts, we've done the we're threatening to take away type stuff. But I know your kid's a little bit older. Yeah, I know, right? Your kids are a little bit older. What have you seen that's worked in the past in terms of just being able to match up a punishment with a infraction, I guess you could call it.
Right. So to put this in perspective for the people who don't know me, I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old. I have an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 3-year-old. So I've got a lot of kids.
Yeah.
My 18-year-old daughter, she still doesn't listen. She's a great kid. She's a straight A student, and she just enlisted in the Army. So I'm super proud of her. She's about to learn how to listen to rules.
Yeah.
And she's about to learn about how it all works. But I'm extremely proud of her, extremely proud of who she's become. The thing is, man, each kid is different. And each kid is going to listen in their own way. You just have to find what gets to them the most.
Yep.
If we go with, my 16-year-old son, if I took sports away from him, it's the end of the world. You know what I mean? So if I really want to get to him and I really want to push the point across, I find something to do with taking that away. But my 15-year-old, if I took sports away, he'd be like, yeah, I don't care. Whatever. It is, you know what I mean? And so it's just a matter of finding that balance between what works and what doesn't work. And as they get older, the punishments get harsher. I'm not a big proponent of hitting the kids or spanking or anything like that. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There's been a couple times where I've scared the crap out of my oldest son, because you get out of line, and at some point I gotta teach you, hey, that's not how you're gonna handle things. You're not gonna be disrespectful.
Yep.
But it age appropriate is different in everybody's eyes.
Yep.
I hear people say timeouts for as old as they are, up until like 6 or 7. The big thing that I've always been told and that I've always actually figured out actually works is no empty threats with them. So I'm not going to say I'm going to put you in timeout and then never do it. You've actually got to follow through, so that way they know they have boundaries, they know they have limits, and they know they have lines. Because the empty threats, eventually they're just going to be like, yeah, okay.
Yep. You hit the nail on the head there. That's what I was going to say. Is it's got to be consistent, and it's got to be the threat that's fulfilled. Because I mean, a kid even at the age of 2 or 3 is going to pick up on, well, if dad keeps on saying I'm going to do this, but I don't end up doing this, then well, the heck with it. It's not going to happen.
When you have a mix too, man, it's hard, because I'm telling you right now, my daughter could get away with murder. She is my only girl, man, and she could get away with murder. My girlfriend, her daughter is 12. My stepdaughter, pretty much, she could get away with murder. Like I love the girl to death. And as crazy as she can make me sometimes, she could get away with murder, and I'll be there. One of my boys tries something, man. You better get up to your room. So it is hard to be a dad of a girl, because they get you wrapped around their little fingers, man, and it's hard.
You can't help it. I know.
No.
It is without a doubt. All right, well, we're gonna go to a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk some NBA. They've set their start date for the next season. We'll also talk some college basketball, as that's going to be cranking up here in the next little bit. But we'll be right back. Brandon Combs, Michael Draper here on Dad's Watching Sports. Y'all stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Dad's Watching Sports podcast has some exciting news for you. You guys have heard us talk about the RTF Sports Network. You can check out our show there, streaming each and every week on their Facebook page. And, of course, our podcast on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Well, the RTF Network is rebranding to the All Access Sports Network. We're super excited about this and looking forward to providing our listeners all access to the world of sports, and in our case, dad life. Stay tuned for more information about the All Access Sports Network. We're back here on Dad's Watching Sports. Again, I apologize if we're a little delayed here. I'm having some technical issues, but back here on Dad's Watching Sports, Michael Draper, Kyle Castles is out this week. So we got Brandon Combs in from Triple Shot Sports. We were just talking all kinds of stuff about punishments and elections and all that kind of stuff. But guys, Brandon, let's actually get into a little more sports talk here. So the NBA set their start date for the 2020-2021 season. The NBA Players Association agreed for a December 22nd start date. So they're going to be back before this calendar year is over. It seems like their season just finished. What do you make of that? Do you think the vets are going to sit out a lot of those early games? Is that considered PTO when they do that? You know, that kind of stuff. But what do you make of the NBA coming back so soon?
I was surprised. But then I started thinking, I was like, well, what about the teams that didn't get invited to the bubble? The teams that were already out of it. They're itching to get back into it. And the teams that were in the bubble, maybe they need a little bit more time off. They're used to what? I mean, usually it's a 5-month layoff for them?
Yeah.
Or 3 month or 4 month. Yeah. So, I mean, they're getting a little bit shorter layoff, but I hear LeBron's or people saying LeBron may not come back if they start in December like they're planning around Christmas time. To me, look, and I'm an advocate for the players, and I never say players are just overpaid athletes because I don't believe that. But you do get paid really well as an athlete, and if they want you to come back in December and you don't show up, I have no problem with them not paying you to not show up. So I think that if they decide as a league to come back at Christmas, everybody should be there. But that's just me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that as well. I mean, I think, yes, that it's a quick turnaround, but like you alluded to, half the teams did not go to Orlando, and they also had a couple of months stretch in between where they were just kind of hanging out during the COVID quarantine. So, I get it. It's a long, grueling 82 game season, and they just finished up the season, and they were in the bubble and all that. But like you kind of alluded to, man, they get paid a lot of money, and the NBA's really kind of embraced this resting and sitting players and all this kind of stuff. So I think everybody will kind of be at full strength in terms of having everybody back. Now, whether those players play a lot early on will remain to be seen. But
I heard the argument from people too that you had these guys in a bubble, they were away from their families. I'm a Marine. I don't want to hear that. I've got brothers and sisters that are overseas and don't get to see their family for a year or two. So the fact that you were held out and couldn't see your family for a month, look, I feel for you and I understand what you're going through, but get back to work. I mean, that's what you're paid for. That's why we buy your jerseys. That's why we do our podcast to talk about you. Yep. That's what you're paid for. Get back to work.
Yeah, and for me, NBA on Christmas has been a thing, and it seems like for fans, that's something that we look forward to. Where they usually line up about 6 or 7 games that day, and so to not have that would be a tough way to end the year. Speaking of Christmas, we actually talked about this on our podcast a couple of weeks ago. I'm interested to get your take. When is too early, or when is the appropriate time in your book to decorate for Christmas? And the reason I'll bring this up is I was on a run maybe Thursday morning in my neighborhood. Or it was Thursday evening, I apologize. And running around the neighborhood, and I seen Christmas lights. I'm seeing Christmas trees in people's houses. I'm like, it's November 5th. Like what is going on here? I'm a big Thanksgiving first, we'll decorate after a guy. What's your take?
Yeah, so we've had this argument. Me and my girlfriend, she wanted to put pumpkins out in like September. Ooh. And I was like, look, I mean, we got to wait a little bit, Same thing with Christmas. For me, I actually have a tradition with my kids. We put up the tree Thanksgiving night. And it's always while the women are out shopping for Black Friday or whatever, and the boys put up the Christmas tree.
There you go.
Um, so, but not before Thanksgiving.
Oh.
I want to have stuff. I for me and for us. I mean, look, Christmas it's a big bill. Like it's not even, you know
No
what I
kidding.
mean? Like it's a gigantic. It's just a big bill. So I want to push it off as much as I can. But look, I love Christmas. I love celebrating with the family. To me, the decorations and the music has to be after Thanksgiving.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Speaking of Christmas music, so I don't know if you follow the Twitter handle. It's called the Bracketeers, and they do like these different brackets. I mean, literally like 24/7. I think right now their bracket is the best Star Wars characters or something like that. But
Oh my God.
so I've reached out to those guys, and they're going to join us on Dad's Watching Sports the early part of December, and we're doing a 32. I guess you could say field bracket for the best holiday song. So we're thinking like, okay, obviously you'll have Christmas songs, like the traditional ones. You'll have kind of like religious type songs, other songs, or like funny / comical songs that were added to the list. Any number one seed, potential number one seeds that you think of in terms of Christmas songs?
Man, I like a lot of the older Christmas songs, which is weird because if you listen to if you go on my Spotify playlist, man, you might hear Nirvana, or you might hear Garth Brooks, or you might hear Eminem and MGK. Like I'm kind of all over the map, but when it comes to Christmas music, I really enjoy the classics, the Let It Snows, and I like a lot of the old singers. I like Sinatra. I like listening to guys like that. So yeah, I would say probably my favorite one would be um, White Christmas.
Okay,
Uh,
nice.
that's probably one of my favorite ones out there.
Definitely a good one. So Michelle Dowling says right now the weather is perfect for putting outside lights up. I think there
That's
is
my
a.
girlfriend trying to get me to
I
put
was
up a
going to
tree right
say it
now in
looks
Chicago.
like a honey-do list is coming out saying let's get those lights up for
Yeah,
that.
that
So
that ain't that ain't happening just yet.
that's right. Yeah, you got to cook your turkey and get that going first,
Yeah.
without a doubt. All right, let's get into some NFL talk. It's been an interesting weekend in the National Football League. So on our show last week, Kyle and I talked about the two remaining undefeateds, and we're talking about like when are they going to lose? I'll have to give Kyle credit. He called Buffalo knocking off Seattle today. And then it looked like there for a while the Cowboys were going to shock the world and pull an upset over the Steelers. But any reactions from this week in the NFL for you? What was some things that you saw this weekend that
Yeah.
really stood out to you?
I was really impressed by Miami.
Yeah.
The way they handled Arizona after Arizona knocked off Seattle last week. And I was impressed with Tua and the way that he kept coming back. I mean, they were down heading into the fourth quarter. They're in Arizona, so it's an away game. They impressed me today. I'm a big Bears fan. The how bad the Bears offense is depressing. Like I'm watching play calls. We can't run the ball to save our life. 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and we're still trying to run the ball. And then we look at. I feel bad for Nick Foles. Everybody's like, oh, maybe need to go back to Trubisky. There's a stat out there. He's been pressured since he's been the starting quarterback. He's been pressured for 48% of his passing attempts.
Ooh.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is insane. So I man, there's been a few. Right now, the Saints are surprising me. They are a big on the Buccaneers. I didn't think that was going to happen. I had the Bucks winning this one. So
Yeah. I was kind of surprised to see that score early on in that game as well. You mentioned Tua, and so the my co-host and I we're kind of down here in SEC country. We have seen Tua since the moment he got on the scene against Georgia in the national championship game, and really everything he did at Alabama. So very familiar with Tua. He's starting to play really well now that he's finally gotten healthy again. Are you on the Tua train and think he can get Miami sniffing around the playoffs?
so I was a big fan of Miami with Fitzpatrick.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that Fitzpatrick had them on the right path. I thought they were going to be a playoff team. After I saw Tua last week, I was like, man, 12 of 26, 93 yards. But then the way he went to Arizona today and out Kyler Murray today.
Right.
He Yeah, I mean, I think they're better than we said we were going through it today. We think Miami's a top 10 team in the NFC right now. If we're doing our power rankings right now, we would have Miami at like 8 or 9.
Wow.
So and yeah, isn't that crazy? Like
Yeah.
that's a crazy thought. Right now the Miami Dolphins are in the power rankings and the New England Patriots aren't. So I 2020's been nuts.
Yeah.
And that's how I explain it. But I think Tua can get them there. I think they're good enough. I think Tua can get them, especially with the extra playoff spot this year.
Yeah.
I could definitely see Tua leading them to the playoffs.
Well, somebody else that will have to make the playoffs is whatever team stumbles into the win for the NFC East. The Giants beating the Redskins today was another kind of a little bit of a shocker. Who do you think is going to win that division? Should anyone even get that bid because of how bad that division is?
I call it the NFC least.
Yeah.
Because look, the winner of this division, and I'm convinced, is going to have 6 wins. And that not only are they going to have 6 wins, but they're going to be a 6-win team that hosts a playoff game.
Yeah.
And that can't happen. The NFL has to do something. I don't know if it's like go back to the old. I don't know if you remember back in the NHL, your best 8, your top 8 go to the playoffs. You have your 2 conferences and the top 8 goes. I would like to see something like that in the NFL, as opposed to your division winner, because we're dads. I mean, if your kid comes home and says, "Hey, Dad, I got all D's and 1 F on my report card, but everybody else in the class got all F's." Are you proud of your kids still? You
Heck
know what I
no.
mean? So you're not going to reward them. You're not taking them out for ice cream after that. So why should they be in the playoffs? I don't. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. They're going to go to the playoffs. They're going to get trounced in the playoffs. And watch something stupid happen, like my co-host on Man Hour After Dark, Michael Buckheiser, likes to say, the winner of the NFC East is going to go to the NFC title game.
Yeah, and that wouldn't surprise me. That would be a very fitting end to what has been a wacky and unbelievable year. Is if that happened, if you see somebody like the Eagles stumble into the playoffs and knock off a couple of teams and make it to it definitely would not surprise me.
I would be mortified. Like I don't even know if I'd watch. I'd be so mad. Oh,
yeah,
it's so bad.
Yes, it is. Well, let's shift gears out of the NFL to college basketball, which I'm very excited about. Honestly, it's my favorite sport. I will watch. You pull up a
You're
11
Kansas
p.m.
Fan, right?
Kentucky guy, but I mean, I will literally watch. Like, I'll pull up, the MAC championship game or just a regular season game from the MAC conference or any other conference during like the middle of the week in the middle of December, just because I enjoy watching it so much. So ESPN released their way too early top 25, which is not way too early really, because they start in 3 weeks. And in that, you've got some of the traditional powers. You've also got a couple of teams that are kind of new to the fold, and then some teams that really had a good season last year, but we ended up not having a March Madness. And I think that's one really key thing that a lot of people are going to remember, but aren't really going to take into consideration going into the season is, here's a lot of these teams that are prepped for a lot of success this year had really good teams last year and could have been right there on the verge of winning a national championship, but they didn't have that opportunity to, like a Baylor, who was the number 1 team in the way too early top 25, had a really good season last year. They only lost 1 starter from that team, and they're definitely going to be one of the teams at the top of the list this year. But as you're kind of looking through college basketball, and I know it's not a sport that you cover tremendously, but who do you think, who do you have in your top 10 going into the 2020-2021 season?
So I kind of have it with, I put it in perspective of I look into what happened last year, and even though we didn't get a tournament, which I was completely disappointed by, and I look at some of the incoming freshmen and what they have. I think Kansas is going to be very good, as they always are. Kentucky's going to be up there. I've got Gonzaga, Dayton, San Diego State, Creighton. Maybe a couple of teams that people don't really think about.
Mm-hmm.
I would have them definitely in the top 10. Duke, they've got Joey Baker. They've got a kid, a freshman. Watch out for this kid now. He's a shooting guard. He's kind of small for a shooting guard. He is only 6'2", but he's right here, and I'm kind of tuning it, being he's a Chicago kid, but he went to Fenwick High School out here. DJ Stewart, he's a little small for a shooting guard, but the kid can absolutely flat out shoot the ball. He is a Klay Thompson type of shooting guard, and he is going to put up big numbers as a freshman for Duke. So, because when it comes to college basketball, when it comes to college football, I'm a Notre Dame guy, but when it comes to college basketball, I've always kind of been a closet Duke fan.
Oh,
So
man,
yeah,
I
I
wish you'd
know.
have told me that before I asked you to be on this show. That makes this really awkward because that's obviously as a Kentucky fan and the history
Yeah,
with
I
that
know.
with Leitner and Duke and everything from that.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely a good list. I mean, when you're looking at college basketball, there are those teams that every once in a while, every couple of years, are going to pop up and be good. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like college football. You're still going to have the traditional powers that are going to be there every single year. And as I look at the 2020, 2021 season, there's going to be a lot of that. I think almost every single season from the past decade to the foreseeable future, you're going to have Kentucky, Kansas, and Duke in that in some form or fashion because they all three recruit at the highest level. They get the best players. They have the three of the best coaches in the game. So they're just going to consistently be there. And I've got all three of those in my top 10. I've got Kentucky at 3, Kansas at 7, and Duke at 8. You'll see, like I mentioned, Baylor in my list, Wisconsin, who's always kind of been, hovering around the top 10, top 15 and makes a lot of runs. A couple of non-traditional teams that I've got, Texas Tech, they went to the national championship game 2 years ago. Obviously, we did not have a tournament last year. They had not as good of a season last year, but Chris Beard is one of the best college basketball coaches out there. And I think I've got Texas Tech in my top 10. And then really look out for, and this pains me to say this because I can't stand this team, Tennessee. Rick Barnes, left Texas, came to Tennessee. A lot of people didn't really expect a whole lot out of him there. But, man, he has been able to get that program going. They recruit well. They develop their players well. Over the past 3 to 4 years, Tennessee's been a top 10 to top 5 team. They've got Yves Pons and John Fulkerson, 2 all-SEC guys coming back next year as well. Again, pains me to say it, but Tennessee's going to be really good. And then, my last kind of 3 that I'll talk about are Virginia. They won the title 2 years ago after being the number 1. They got knocked off by the 16 the year before that. They just kind of reload. They've got a transfer from Marquette, Sam Hauser, who's going to be a really good player for them. Gonzaga, again, seems like every single year Mark Few's got a junior and senior laden team. They're able to come in and really make a lot of noise, and they play the softest schedule in the world, but they continue to be right there at the end of the thick of things. And then the team that I think is the number 1 team in the country is Villanova. Jay Wright is kind of like Mark Few, but he does it better. He recruits better, he reloads better, he develops players better, and he's got 2 championships to prove that. So I got Villanova as my number 1 team. But, as I looked through the way too early top 25, college basketball is kind of wide open. There's not just a dominant team that we've seen over the past couple of years. So it'll make for a fun winter heading into what is hopefully March Madness. And I hope we don't have madness beforehand because it's going to be hard to get these kids to get games in kind of in our current climate with COVID and everything. So I hope we're able to see a lot of games.
Dayton's kind of a sleeper too.
Dayton
seems like it could sneak up on you.
Yeah, they definitely could. They did lose Obi Toppin, but who was right there for National Player of the Year. But Anthony Grant is their head coach, does a tremendous job. I think he'll definitely have them in contention. And I know you mentioned San Diego State. They've been a team that's kind of been right there on the cusp. They were one of the last undefeated teams heading into last year as well.
So when does college basketball plan on starting?
Looks like around November 25th. I think it's like the week of Thanksgiving. Okay. Yeah, they're going to get in, and what it looks like that they're going to be doing is they're going to have a combination of some preseason tournaments that were originally going to be in a bubble, and now that they may be just kind of a couple of teams in a mini bubble on different campuses. Yep. But everything that I've heard is a lot of the conferences are kind of set up to where if one player tests positive on a team, that entire team has to quarantine for 2 weeks. So you could see, whereas obviously with football, not anywhere close to that. So it's going to be a chaotic
At
season
least
for
they
sure.
have a plan, though, right? Because the NFL
Yes.
sure as hell didn't have a plan, and NCAA football looks like it probably won't even finish. But college basketball, to me, like I remember when we were wondering whether or not college football was going to get in, and Supas is down in Oklahoma. He's a bit of Oklahoma State guy, and he kind of broke a little bit of news. And he said that the students over at Oklahoma State were told that they were going to come to school to start it off, but Thanksgiving break they were going to be told not to come back after. So I'm not sure if they did that just to get college football in,
Yeah.
and what they're planning outside of that. Maybe maybe this whole thing, will start to fade away a little bit. Um, Now that the election's over,
Yeah.
not calling any conspiracy theories or anything, but
Right.
I
We've
just
all had the thoughts.
yeah, so maybe this will, go, and I hope it does. I mean, just because I love talking sports. I love sports in general. And so hopefully we can get some college football or basketball in, uh, and then NHL and NBA can start up too, and we can actually get back to some normalcy.
Absolutely. Let's shift gears to NCAA football really quickly, since we're talking NCAA. It was kind of a wild weekend in college football as well, and some really good games. We'll talk about the luck of the Irish there towards
Yeah.
the end here. But one pretty impressive win was Liberty knocking off Virginia Tech, and I don't know how much you follow Liberty, but they're the Fighting Hugh Freezes going into Virginia Tech in a wild finish where they kick a field goal, it gets blocked, Virginia Tech runs it back for a touchdown for the win, but then they realize that their coach Justin Fuente called a timeout right before the kick. Liberty runs one play, gets like 9 yards. They kick a field goal and end up winning the game. Pretty wild ending there.
Liberty. I don't know how many people follow Liberty. Um,
Not many.
And there was I heard the guys on ESPN, they always try to come up with their puns, and they're like Hugh freezed over, and it was like I'm just like
Yeah.
you guys are crazy, but the way that game ended was absolutely insane. And I hate when things end like that because to me it's like it takes away from what the game was, but good for Liberty.
Yeah.
Good for them to go out there and get done what they needed to get done to get that big win. It's a huge win, and those schools they live for those moments. That's why they play those games against those bigger schools who they're not supposed to beat, and then you come out and beat them. So I love those Cinderella stories. Even we just talk college basketball. I love when a 12 beats a 5 or a 13 beats a 4, or even the one year we had a 16 beat a 1. So I absolutely live for those moments. I love chaos in sports. So
Yep.
yeah, I
Well, speaking of chaos, what are your thoughts on BYU and Cincinnati, and can they throw some chaos into the college football playoff and make a run for one of the top 4 spots?
no, no, because you're going to get to an ACC title game where you're going to have probably undefeated Notre Dame versus one-loss Clemson.
Yep.
And if Clemson beats Notre Dame in that game, then do you really knock out Notre Dame for losing in the championship game? A lot of times that doesn't happen, especially in the SEC. You'll see a lot of times where you have Alabama playing LSU, and they're both 1-2, and then whoever loses gets knocked down to 4 or something. I think you're going to have that this year in the ACC because of the money that's involved with the schools. Notre Dame is a bigger draw than Cincinnati, and it's a bigger draw than Baylor. So if they don't lay an egg here in the last 4 weeks, and then if they don't, if they lose to Clemson in the ACC title game, then I think they're still in the picture. But I also think that if Clemson should lose that game and Notre Dame comes out on top, you really do have an argument for those two teams because an undefeated team versus a two-loss team now is a bigger deal. Um, but then again, strength of schedule, you're playing in the Big East, and I don't know, man. I just don't like when those schools get into the BCS games because they tend to get rolled and it's not even a chance and it's not even fair and it's not even good football.
Well, we'll see. I think BYU. I've watched them play several games. I think they can play with anybody. They've got a quarterback that can sling the ball around, and do they play the same type of competition that could they have gone into could they have played Clemson and beat them like Notre Dame did, or vice versa? Who knows? But I think until they give that opportunity, we wouldn't know. TJ comments, I'd like to point out my Aggies are in the top 5 for the first time in forever. Yes, they are, TJ. And I'm telling
And
you,
it only took half the league to not play to get that to happen.
that's true, but I'll tell you, Texas A&M could back their way into a playoff spot because their only losses to Alabama, meaning they're not going to go to the SEC championship game. So if Alabama keeps winning and A&M keeps winning and Alabama wins the SEC championship, and then all these other teams lose, Texas A&M's going to say, "Hey, the best team in the country is the only team we lost to. It was at their place, and here we are, ready to
You're
go."
gonna get the A&Ms, the Ohio States, LSU, Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame. All of those teams are going to get in before you see a Cincinnati and BYU get in. Even as long as they only have 0 or 1 losses, um, I think they get more consideration than those other 2 schools we were trying to get in there.
So you mentioned an Irish fan. I'm taking you watched the dramatic win over Clemson in overtime on Saturday night. What were your thoughts on the win, and where do the Irish go from here? And then we'll talk about after the game the fans storming the field.
Yeah. So I watched every minute of the game. I'm a big Notre Dame fan. Love the Irish. I'm a big fan of Ian Book. I really hope that the Bears don't muff this up and either take him or Kyle Trask out of Florida. But that defense is for real. The way that they shut down ETN. Granted, I understand that it's college football though. So when you get a top team like this, they're going to score points. They're going to put up yards. Their backup quarterback. A lot of people came at me today and they're like, "Oh, well, tried beating them with Trevor Lawrence." The kid threw for 439 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no turnovers.
You're right. Yeah, that kid has not played bad at all. Yeah.
It wasn't quarterback play that cost them the win. It was the defense that cost them the win. Notre Dame finally has a signature win against one of the power 3 or 4 schools when you talk about it. That it's finally they got over that hump, and with or without Trevor Lawrence there, it's a big win for Notre Dame and a good win for Notre Dame. They've got 4 games left. They can't lay an egg. They can't lose to the Boston colleges or the Purdue's of the world. They have to go out there. They have to come back out, do their thing. That defense is good enough to hang in there with just about anybody. And they're good enough. They showed last night they're good enough to score with anybody. They put up 47 points on a really good Clemson team. I still think Alabama's the cream of the crop. They are the gold standard. Unfortunately, I can't stand Alabama. I can't stand Nick Saban. I hate everything about them. And I really do hope that they find a way to lose in the playoffs here. I love watching Alabama lose in the playoffs. So yeah, I think it was a great win. Great win for Kelly and the boys.
Yeah, and Notre Dame has really over the past 5 or so years, when they kind of came back when Kelly's really kind of gotten them rolling. I guess it's really been more like 10 years, but they have always kind of had that. They play well, but they can't win the big one. They can't win the big game. They can't knock off a team that's seen as kind of another powerhouse in college football. So this was a pretty big win for them, I think. This kind of gets them over the hump in terms of, even if it's just a mindset of, hey, we actually do belong in the top 5, with the Bamas, the Clemsons, the Georgias, et cetera, of the world. We're not just Notre Dame who plays this, potentially easy schedule.
They had that one year where they knocked off LSU and then had to go play Alabama in the title game, and then you had the Manti Te'o's, girlfriend who wasn't a girlfriend,
right?
Catfishing and whatever. But yeah, Notre Dame is Notre Dame, and they're a well-known, well-respected school, but also a well-hated school. So it's good to see them back in a position to do what they're doing.
You think they run the table until the ACC championship game?
I do. Yeah, I think that they're that good. I think that if they were going to falter, it would have been the week before they played Clemson. I felt like that was really their trap game, and they came out and found a way to win that game. It was a closer game than it should have been, but they found a way to win it, and that's what good teams do. And so, yeah, I think they're going to go to the ACC title game undefeated. And to be honest with you, I think they've got a great chance, Trevor Lawrence or no Trevor Lawrence. So
It'll be interesting to see how they match up against BC. You know, Boston College came out and took like a 28-10 lead on Clemson just a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully they're not sleeping after their big victory. All right, let's get a couple of picks in, then we got one more topic, and then we'll get out of here. We got Ohio State at Maryland this weekend. Ohio State, really the team that people have kind of forgotten about. Everybody's been talking about Clemson and Alabama, but Ohio State pitting up big numbers again. Justin Fields looks as good as advertised, and the Buckeyes are right there in the thick of it. They go to Maryland, who is always tough, played really well. They knocked off Penn State this past weekend. They're a team that's just kind of right there in contention for being a top 25 team as well. So you got the Buckeyes or the Terrapins.
yeah, so I'm not so sure Ohio State's forgotten about as opposed to they just haven't played.
Yeah,
It's
a good
Big
point.
Ten is one of those those conferences that everybody loves to watch lose, just like Alabama. I would really love to pick Maryland in this game, and I really hope that Maryland wins this game. But Justin Fields is really good. He's going to be probably the second quarterback picked in the draft this coming year, and I mean Ohio State's going to win this game.
Yeah, I think Ohio State wins too. And the thing about Ohio State is we've mentioned it on the show before is they have a smaller sample size of a schedule to work with. So style of points are at a paramount for the Buckeyes. And I think they put those on full display against Maryland and went big. Second game, you mentioned the Crimson Tide earlier. They go to LSU, rematch of the game from last year where LSU finally went into Tuscaloosa and knocked off Alabama. LSU not even close to being the same team. I'll go ahead and pick first. Alabama will win this game big. Big could be 42-49-7 type of big. LSU just doesn't have the playmakers right now. If they do, they're really young, they're unproven, and Alabama has playmakers everywhere. I don't like them either, but I'm also married into a family that works for Saban and company, so we have to at least put up with them. So I'll take Alabama big time in this game.
Well, look, I feel for you in that aspect. I couldn't do it. Look, LSU last year beat Alabama and then celebrated on the 50-yard line in Tuscaloosa, and it was, I mean, they were taunting Alabama and everything. This is going to be that game that Alabama just does not take its foot off the throttle.
Yep.
They are going to win this game. They're going to try to put up 90 points, and they might do it. This LSU defense is atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Alabama's going to win this one big, and like I said, Nick Saban's going to go for the throat.
Yep, without a doubt. Last game we'll pick is Harbaugh and Michigan. Lost again this past weekend. They will be hosting Wisconsin, who really is what people were probably saying is the only team that can really compete with Ohio State in the Big Ten. You got the Badgers or the Wolverines?
Two more teams I just don't like. I don't like anything that comes out of Wisconsin, and I really don't like anything that comes out of Michigan either. I think Harbaugh and the boys find a way to get this done. Wisconsin plays tough. Wisconsin plays everybody tough. I think Michigan's just a better team, a better coach team as well. So I'll take Michigan in this one.
Okay, I'm going to go the Badgers. I think Harbaugh has lost his touch up there. Not that they really had much anyway, but I think everything's going downhill for the Wolverines. Which I'm also
out after this year. Do you think?
Who are they going to get? I mean, that's the thing is who is going to do a better job there than if he's the guy. I mean, if anybody's going to get that thing kind of eventually turned around,
really
I think
NFL coach.
He is. Now he may leave. But I just could not foresee them firing him because who are they going to get? That's not. I mean, it's a good job. It's a top 15 job, but I don't think they're not going to lure away somebody that's coaching a top 10 program. So
yeah, I could see him going and trying to turn around that Jets organization.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he could leave, but I don't think there's any way they get rid of him. All right, last topic, and this has been one that's had a lot of controversy across the social network, the social media networks, and across the internet over the past couple of days. I'm gonna put a picture up here. So there's a guy that posted this picture of his wife, clearly in the middle of what looks to be a very painful labor, and my man is just kicked back eating some pepperoni and pepper pizza. First off, this is awesome. But secondly, there's been a lot of pushback on this of, oh, well, why is he not being supportive and all this and that? I'll tell you this thing, having gone through this twice now with our kids, yes, it's amazing and it's unbelievable what the ladies put themselves through. But at the end of the day, there's really not a whole lot you can do. You're kind of left on the sidelines for a lot of this. And so, if you're hungry, why not pop open a Domino's thin crust pepperoni and jalapeno pizza?
Look, as a man, as a man who's been through, kidney stones at that, I don't know if you've ever had the unfortunate,
I have not, thank goodness,
of having one of those. But I'm telling you right now, man, I was like down on a knee. I was screaming in pain. I was in the doctor's office, and the nurse comes in and she goes, "Are you okay?" I said, "Does it look like I'm freaking okay?" Like I felt like I was pregnant. Look, that pain and that stuff that they go through. Look, women are stronger than men.
Oh, without a doubt.
Over, and I just that takes some cojones, man. That takes a guy who either A, has the best wife in the history of all wives, and who is very understanding in that moment, or that's just a guy who just doesn't care.
Yeah.
Because I'm there with ice chips. I'm like, hey, babe, are you okay? Rubbing the head. I love you. You can do this. And my man is just jalapeno and pepperoni pizza, just sitting back, man. I couldn't have done it. I wouldn't have had the guts to.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll put it this way. I think all of us, if we went into that situation and we did that and we were happily married, I don't know that we would be happily married after that situation. But yeah, kudos to him for having the cojones to do that. And hopefully, maybe after the delivery, he shared a little bit with with his wife.
Who knows? Maybe he was looking to just have weekends with the kid.
It's true.
That was a good way to get it because, man, that's
without a doubt. Without a doubt. All right, Combs, we're out of time, man. I appreciate you coming on. Again, tell everybody out there that listens to our show where they can find you on Triple Shot Sports.
Yeah, Triple Shot Sports on the All Access Sports Network. You also find us on youtube.com/Triple Shot Sports. If you like that show, you can also catch me on Man Hour After Dark, Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Love talking sports with you guys. Love bringing you guys the stuff that you want to listen to. So feel free to chime in, Triple Shot Sports, on the Facebook page or on the YouTube page.
All right. Well, this has been Dad's Watching Sports. Michael Draper, Brandon Combs. Next week, we'll be joined back again with Kyle Castles. We'll see you next week. Hope you guys enjoy the show. Y'all take care.